in Oregon. So currently live in Oregon. I'm up here in the Vancouver, Washington office with Matt Smith's team today. Paul McLean's office, or Paul McLean's coming out for the business overview tonight. So love him being up here. I am actually gonna be moving to South Carolina here in like the next 30 days. So if you guys are out there, we're gonna have an office out in Greenville, South Carolina, which is gonna be amazing. Grand opening coming soon. But I've been with Family First Life now for about 2 years. Before I was in Family First Life, I spent about 10 years in the direct sales network marketing industry, and I also had my own digital marketing agency. So I did that for quite some time. And on paper, everything looked really great. You know, I had some really good years and I also had some really tough years. So I like to say that for the first 10 years in business, I wasn't an entrepreneur. I was a wantrepreneur. So, you know, I made six figures when I was 18, 19 years old. No one ever taught me how to save for taxes. So, you know, I owed a bunch of money to the IRS and was on the hamster wheel for a long time trying to pay it back. Got into digital marketing. You know, we had a 7-figure a year agency, but I had 4 partners and 4 employees. So by the time it was all said and done, I was probably paying myself $2,000 a month to run the operations of, you know, a 7-figure agency. So I pretty much owned a job. And throughout all of that, you know, looked really good on paper. You know, I was kind of had this facade on social media that I used to be successful, but I was still successful, but I was really struggling. You know, I was living in a $250 a month apartment above a septic tank shop, you know, across the street from a gas station. And I was looking at Grady doing insurance. And I was kind of looking down at Grady from my ivory tower, you know, above the septic tank shop saying, insurance, you know, I'm too good for that. And if it gets bad enough, I'll call Grady. If it gets bad enough, I don't know how much worse it could have gotten. I had just filed bankruptcy, got my BMW taken away from me in front of all my friends and family. It was pretty bad. And at that point, I got in touch with Grady. I was shutting down my business, and he brought me in actually as a staff member at first. And he said, you know what, you would crush it selling insurance, but I don't think you're ready for that. I need you to come in and help me with some marketing recognition stuff. So he brought me in. I did that for about 6 months. Then my wife was a teacher. She was the breadwinner at that point in time. I've always had a desire to be the provider, but I was kind of also a glorified house husband, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I was, you know, doing the dishes and making her lunches and, you know, doing the laundry, all that stuff. And I wanted more. She gets laid off from her job. We lose half of our income. Teachers are very well paid up here in the Northwest. And we lose our health insurance. So we said we want to have a baby. I said, okay, I got to go to work. So I got my license in 6 days. And I said, if I can just replace her income and get us some health insurance, I'll keep my job with Grady. If I can help 2 families every weekend. I ended up helping 8 families my first weekend. Now, everybody's different. Not everybody catches on as quickly as I did. You know, I just happened to catch on pretty quickly. And, you know, sales is really, really hard, as most of you guys have figured out pretty quickly if you're brand new here. So light bulb went off for me. I just decided to become a student of the game. I think that's one of the most important things that, you know, Grady taught me in the beginning is always be seeking feedback from people who've done it before you. And I just was a student of the game all the way. I picked a couple of people, I copycatted them, and I said, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get to the point where I can help 30 families a month. If I can help 30 families a month, my family's going to be okay. I can actually bring my wife home who has desire to be a stay-at-home mom versus saying, hey, you're pregnant. Why don't you stay in the school system and keep teaching while I kind of half-ass entrepreneurship for the rest of our life. And I just didn't want that anymore. And I, you know, since then, you know, it's crazy because I was in major debt coming into Family First Life. Since then, I'm, you know, totally debt-free. My wife has been stay-at-home mom for now close to 2 years. And we've had you know, 1 baby. We've got a 1-year-old and another one on the way. And, you know, now we're moving across the country to South Carolina, and, you know, life is good. And we work really, really hard, and this business isn't easy. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but it's the best business ever, like we always say.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Well, I appreciate that. I'm in South Carolina right now, actually, too. And I lived here before. So we need someone like you out here to power this thing forward. I'm so happy to have you being out here, man. It's awesome. Dude, the first thing I wanted you to touch on, to your point, some people have a slower start than others. Like for me, someone the other day said, hey, you know, you just got it right away, right? You were just always helping 30 families a month. And dude, it took me a long time. Like it took me 4 or 5 months to get to that point. And you happened pretty quickly for you. And I think the most important thing, I was with John Wetmore the last couple of days, and I was like, someone said that, he was like, I wish I had a GoPro to video and show everyone how bad you were in the beginning, you know, because it would give them a lot of perspective, and it would make people not quit when they saw how easy it got once you got rolling. But everyone has that light bulb moment, right? And the kind of switch, and sometimes it takes a week, sometimes it takes 3 months. It just depends on the person. What I'd love for you to cover with you getting started, the biggest struggle people have is, you know, is the mindset behind buying leads. And then what kind of leads did you actually use to get rolling and have a quick start as an agent?
Totally. And I mean, I feel like I can relate to a lot of people on here, and I can relate to both you and Easton, where I wasn't good in the beginning, but I put the activity in my favor. And I think that's the part that a lot of people don't understand, because if you looked at my numbers, in order for me to help 8 families, I had to dial the phone like 1,000 times that first dial day. And that was the thing, is that some people come in their first dial day and they dial the phone, 85 times, and then they say they're done because, a couple people told them they didn't fill it out. And for me, I just knew that that wasn't going to work. I know that, I think if you have a family, you've got a significant other, sometimes you have a little bit more of a driving force behind you that says, I have to make this work. Or maybe even if you do have a significant other, maybe if my wife still had a job, I would have been a little bit more lax with this. But because I knew that I had to make it work, I said, I'm gonna do whatever it takes, no matter what. Grady said, it's not even worth it if you don't have at least 10 appointments. So I dialed until I got the job done. Now, what were those appointments? Those appointments were, final expense leads, and we didn't have internet leads at the time. So basically brand new final expense leads, $20 a piece, Facebook, and some aged final expense. So I saw someone in the Q&A, they asked, you came in a bunch of debt, how did you get your first lead purchase? Well, I had a wife that had been working and supporting our family, so I had to convince her for us to pull $1,500 out of our savings account, and for me to go all in on 40 brand new final expense leads and about 100 old final expense leads that have been sitting around the different counties here in Oregon. And I said, if I'm going to spend this money out of our savings, it's going to be the last time that we ever invest into the business. I think that was really important to me. People talk about, hey, are you invested in crypto? Are you in Bitcoin? Did you see what XYZ did? I'm like, dude, insurance is my Bitcoin, because I put $1,500 and I've never put any money back into the business again. And it's turned into this business, and like, look what it's become, this cash flow machine. How many, hey, you 5X'd your crypto in one year. Okay, well, how many X did I grow that to get to, the level that we're at today, which is just so insane. So for me, I looked at it as I wanted to play with house money as soon as possible. So I said, I have to return the investment that we made no matter what. And I looked at it and said, if I can't return on 250, new and aged leads, if I can't return $1,500, I should not be in sales. That was important to me. And I said, I should not do commission-based sales if I have 100 names and phone numbers and I cannot sell one of them. So I think that's just an important distinction that, I'm not saying if you're that person, you should get out of this business, but you should take a serious look at if you're being a serious enough student of the game. So I only got started with, final expense leads, and I did what I had to do to book them. I had every single thing in the book, in regards, I didn't fill it out, I'm not interested anymore. And I had to learn that all of those objections were big fat smoke screen lies. And you had these vulnerable people who really wanted the information that they were just afraid to be sold. And I had to learn how to be the anti-telemarketer on the phone, the anti-salesperson, increase credibility, reduce sales pressure as quickly as possible. And I kind of transitioned from final expense leads to, I wanted to get some aged mortgage because that was all that was available. I was in an area where everything was locked out. So I got aged mortgage.
Hey, Jamie, real quick, before you keep going there, you said something important, I think, that I want to note for everyone. Like, you got to reduce sales pressure, reduce anxiety on the client's end, right? Can you give everyone some examples of how you do that on the phone? Because I think a lot of people come in and they're like, I'm going to be this sales guru, right? And then, like, the less sales you can sound, as counterintuitive as it sounds, the less sales you are, the more you'll set, the more you'll sell. So give people a couple, examples of what you say on the phone to make it not seem super salesy when you're setting an appointment with someone.
Hey, Zach, I'm not a telemarketer. I'm not a telemarketer. I'm just the underwriter. Hey, don't hang up. I'm not a telemarketer. So I'll like say, so obviously I started with Facebook leads and I struggled. I had to work my butt off to just do whatever I had to do to set appointments. Now today, if I dial internet leads with a totally different mindset than I did back then. You have to understand the behavior of an internet lead. I think that's one of the most important things to understand. Someone who filled out a direct mail card, they usually only fill out one. Their phone's probably not blowing up. Sometimes people fill out two and they got two agents calling them, or they both come to you. Facebook, again, they were scrolling on Facebook. They weren't even looking for insurance, but they fell into the demographic of someone who's advertised it. They fill it out, they're done. Their phone's not blowing up. Internet lead, their phone's blowing up. Yes, it's an $11 lead, but I would actually argue it's higher intent than a direct mail lead. It's higher intent because they're the only person that actually went on Google and typed in life insurance. They were the only person that was looking for it. Everyone else had it brought to them and said, that looks interesting. So their phone's blowing up. You have to understand that right away. So how do you reduce the sales pressure with someone whose phone's blowing up? Well, I used to say, hey, Zach, this is Jamie getting back with you, in regards to that inquiry you sent to my office about the life insurance. I didn't fill that out. I'm not interested. And I'd have to quickly overcome this rebuttal and try to keep them on the phone. Now I call it out in the first sentence. Hey, Zach, this is Jamie getting back with you. You sent that request into our office about the life insurance. I'm sure your phone started blowing up with telemarketers right after that. I'm actually the manager calling to apologize. My job is to get that information out there to you, get those phone calls to stop. I got a correct address, 123 Main Street. Is that right? And I say that in the first sentence, and it's like you can feel people's shoulders drop sometimes. Obviously, the people who are going to hang up no matter what are going to hang up no matter what. But there's some of these people that just that first sentence of, hey, like, I'm not a telemarketer. I understand that your phone is blowing up. I apologize. I'm like just kind of leveling with them for a second, then going right back into the script. And I've noticed I've kept a lot of pissed off internet leads on the phone because I'm sympathizing with the fact that their phone's blowing up. So, hey, they want to buy, but they don't want to be sold. And a lot of them want to buy. You have to understand this as well. If I'm going online looking for life insurance and I go to a quote tool, I want a quote. So if they don't give me a quote, which nobody gives you a quote, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to the next quote tool and try to find a quote. They won't give me a quote. I go to the next one, won't give me a quote. Now my phone's blowing up nonstop for 3 days straight. You can now imagine that person's attitude when you call. And how can you be the person that reduces the sales pressure and books that appointment? Because if you do, you will be the only person that ever sits with that person. I would say that if you book the pissed off internet lead, your persistency will actually be super high. They'll never let anybody else in the door. Think about how hard they were to book. Nobody else is going to work as hard as you did to book that appointment. So I look at it as if I get in the door with a pissed off internet lead, it's 100% a sale and it's 100% staying on the books.
Absolutely. And then one thing I wanted you to mention too is you started with internet leads. I think a lot of people start there. I think it's a good thing. It's an easy entry point into the industry because you can get so many leads for so little price, right?
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, you have this period where it's like grind and figure it out, and it feels like you're drinking through a fire hose and everything doesn't make sense. It's like learning Chinese, right? And then all of a sudden one day it clicks and it seems easy because you see all these people who are doing well. You're like, why are they having such an easy time with this, right? Mm-hmm. So what did you do to take the money you were making from the internet leads and be able to start reinvesting it? Like, when did you start reinvesting into other lead types to cut down on your dial time on the phone and make your dial days easier?
It took me some time because obviously, most things are locked out for so much time and you kind of chip away at people until you start to lock out all the things around you. But, I started out forever just doing Facebook final expense leads, internet leads, old mortgage. Old mortgage, really allowed me to get some higher premiums early on. And one of the things that I did, that was really important, especially coming from like a background where I had some financial ruin and bankruptcy and stuff. I knew that I had to be a really good steward of the commissions that I had brought in. I would never, again, like I said, I never wanted to have to pull money out of our savings account again, our personal money, to be able to invest into leads. So the first thing that I did was I made sure I had multiple bank accounts so I wouldn't commingle with all of our stuff. And I put my lead purchase in a second checking account and I made a second savings account. So I had a business checking, business saving, shared checking, shared savings for my wife and I. And I said, all my deposits are going into the business checking. And every single time that a deposit comes in, I'm going to split off 30% of everything that comes in, no matter what. So I was meticulous. I'd wake up every morning and see what deposit came in. Even if it was $100, I'd split $30 off and put it in that account every time, knowing very well that I would not need to pay 30% in taxes. I knew I wouldn't have to with all the write-offs that we get. So then anytime that I had a hard week, anytime that I had a big chargeback, anything like that, and I was having not a lot of money in my checking, I would borrow against myself from my business savings, and then I would just put it back. So next time I got a bunch of deposits, instead of putting 30% for the next 5, I'd put 50%, and then I go right back to doing what I was doing. And I did that for a long time. And then when it came to the end of the year, I had so many write-offs and I didn't owe 30% that there was an excess amount of money in the business savings account. And I said, okay, awesome. That's going to be the money that I use now to reinvest back into building a business. That's going to be the money that I can now have for staff. And obviously, I want my everything to be paid for out of what I'm selling on a monthly basis. I don't want to be spending more than I'm making. But I just noticed that business savings started to grow. And anytime that I did have a hard week, I didn't have to slow down. I didn't have to, go back and dial old leads, for 13 hours just to be able to book my appointments. I just said, you know what, I'm just going to borrow against myself. I'm going to get some more leads and I'm going to go back to work. Yeah, I had a hard week. That sucks. Next week will be better. This is such a redeeming business that like you can have a hard week You can have a hard 2 weeks, and then it's like one appointment can change everything. Two appointments can change everything. You have one good week and it puts you on a momentum streak, and you have a great month, and you have a great couple months, and it's like your bank account will look so different. Like I was talking to a guy on my team the other day who he's just really struggled with consistency. And he's like, you know what, dude, like I'm struggling to pay this, I'm struggling to pay that. And I'm like, dude, you sell like, 40 plus families a month. Like, how are you struggling? And he's like, well, I did 40 this month and 5 last month, but then 40 the month before that, and then 2 the month before that. I'm like, dude, that's your problem right there. It's the consistency side of things. So if you're consistent, I'm like, dude, your bank account would look totally different if you just did 40 every month, because all those chargebacks, all those things, and you getting behind on your bills, that would have never happened if you would have just stayed consistent. So consistency is the most important thing. Like I'd much rather you just do 20 to 30 every month than 40 one month, and then 5 the next month, and then 40 the next month, and 5 the next month. Just do 20 to 30 every single month. And then there's like some predictability there.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. And that's what I had to learn that too. And I did that based on just making my goals based on my activity, based rather than anything else. Someone asked a good question actually based around what you were saying with the phone script stuff. COVID, people have been wanting to do more virtual. So my 2-part question to go into this, and then we'll kind of dive into some in-home questions. But are you doing any virtual sales right now? And then if you're doing in person and people are giving you a hard time for whatever reason, wanting a quote over the phone or whatever, how do you get past that?
Man, I would say 99% I'm still in the home.
Mm-hmm.
I would say 60+% of my team is 100% virtual, but I would say I'm personally 99% in the home. I just love it. I spent so many years being, an entrepreneur, chilling in my office, looking at those same 4 walls that it kind of gives me PTSD if I have to stay in there more than one day in a row. So I like going into the field. It's more enjoyable for me. And I feel like I get more work done in the car than when I sit at home. So I'm kind of terrified to come out of the field at some point in the future, because I'm like, what am I going to do all day? But I do love in person. And of course, I get those objections all the time. And it's really, learning how to not make a big deal out of it. So learning how to emphasize words like they, hey, listen, they just make me come out there to do X, Y, Z. Hey, so listen, I'm going to be dispatched out there. It's Friday and Saturday. I'll be seeing about 30 to 40 families a day. So I don't have a lot of time, maybe 5 or 10 minutes to get this out there to you. If you guys have some questions, maybe 5 or 10 minutes more. But all that they do is they just make me, the medical underwriter, come out there, quickly lay eyes on you, make sure you are who you say you are. There's no fraud being committed, and just confirm you guys aren't like 600 pounds or strapped down to a bed full time. That's not you, right? And usually the people laugh like, oh no, that's not me. I had one time last week where the guy goes, I'm not 600, but I am a big SOB. And I was like, oh, okay, got it. All right, per Aetna. So you have to, okay, I'm going to come back to COVID. So I don't want anybody coming out because of COVID. Yeah, perfect. They require me to wear full PPE. I actually have a strict no touch rule. And I just go right back into my script. And regardless of whether I do have that rule or not, it doesn't matter. It just makes that person feel more comfortable. Awesome. They require me to wear a mask. I have a strict no touch rule. Anyways, I got date of birth 8/15/93. If someone really wants it over the phone, I'll do it. I do telesales out of necessity, not out of preference. For me personally, a lot of people, they do it out of preference. I only do it out of necessity. I know that when I get in the home and I can sit across the table from Bob and Mary, and I can, play them off of each other, and I can get the emotions going in the room, I'm going to get bigger premiums.
Absolutely. What I wanted to ask, so you've gotten to the place now where is it fair to say you probably close 50 to 75% of the people you meet with now? Not when you were new, but probably at this point that you sit down in front of and you go through a presentation with them.
It's probably more, if I'm being honest.
More.
It's probably like 90%, to be completely honest. And yeah.
So what are a couple things you can point to as, major things you changed to get to that 90? Because everyone would love to close 90%. So what are a couple of things you can point to that you do in home that you think allow you to close at that high percentage? Because if everyone on here went from 40 to 90, everyone doubles their income if they're at 40, right? So yeah, give them 2 or 3 things they can implement tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. So control is everything. But before I go into control, I'll also say, when you increase your closing percentage, it can actually mess with your mind a little bit. And what I mean by that is, we talk about in the beginning, you need to make up in numbers what you lack in skill. Okay, make up in numbers what you lack in skill. Well, sometimes you can make up in skill what you lack in numbers when you close 90%. So you can get lazy and not book 18 appointments and go, you know what, I got 9, I'm good. And guess what? There's many times I've gone out with 9 appointments and I've closed 8. Many, many times. But there's also been many times where I've gotten cocky with 9 appointments and gotten my butt kicked on 9 appointments, and I should have booked 18. So I want to just make sure that like the activity is still the number one thing. Because even if you aren't the best closer, like you can be an Easton Patton and just go run 40 appointments in a week when you're brand new and still do your 10 to 15 families a week and still have a great living. And by repetition, just literally by repetition, your closing percentage goes up. I mean, Zach, I mean, it's probably fair to say you probably sat with 2,000 to 3,000 families or more, you know, during the time that you were selling. Same here. So when you sit with 2,000 to 3,000 families and you go through your open and your setting of the table 2,000 to 3,000 times, you get some confidence behind it. And when you get some confidence behind it, they follow you. So control in the setting the table. And that's one of the biggest things I learned from you in the beginning, Zach, was the stronger that I set the table, the less objections that I'm going to get on the back end, always. And of course, I still get objections. I still get to think about it. I still have streaks where I'm like, crap, everybody for the last 3 days has told me they want to think about it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just being too loose on my setting of the table. Or I have, you know, I'm just in the doom loop here and, you know, I'm spiraling out of control. I need to smack the reset button and, you know, just go back to work. But setting the table is everything. You know, I come in, first thing always, you know, if the TV's on, hey, can we go ahead and turn off the TV? I got ADD. I'm going to be watching TV with you guys all day if we don't turn that off. And I grab the remote and I turn it off. You know, a power move. I have a guy on my team. I would never recommend this, you know, in a million years, but there was a guy who had a gun on the table, you know, the farmlands of Oregon, and he unloaded the dude's gun and gave it back to him and then started the appointment. Talk about taking control of the appointment. The guy was like, oh, okay, sold it. So it's like, I would never do that, but coming in and I say, here's who I am. Here's why we're here. Here's what we're going to do today. That's your attitude. Here is what we are going to do today. You have to have that attitude all the way through the entire appointment. So, you know, hey, Zach, this is the card that I got at my office. Let's say it's internet lead. You know, internet lead literally just they didn't fill it out. You know, it's not hand filled out. It's just literally first name, last name, email, phone number, birthday, etc. Slide it across the table. Hey, Zach, go ahead and confirm this information for me. Just tell me it's all spelled correctly. We didn't get any numbers wrong. Well, that looks correct. Okay, perfect. And here's my state license. Grab your phone and take a picture of that right now. I'm required to give it to you. So it's like I'm giving instruction right away. Pull out your phone. I don't need that. Hey, go ahead and pull out your phone. I'm required to have you do it. It's like now it's like they're leading. I'm leading them. So they pull it out and they take a picture of it. Okay, perfect. Now, Zach, most people typically fill it out for XYZ reason. Is that what you were looking for or something different? That's what I was looking for. Okay, perfect. And now I asked a few more clarifying questions just to know, hey, you know, so what you're basically telling me is that you want to make sure if you pass away that your son, you know, James, that he, you know, isn't gonna have to deal with XYZ. I basically, what they say to me, I try to pull more out and I just restate back to them why they filled it out. So if I can restate back to them what they were looking for, and I'm like, does that sound about right? You wanted to make sure your James didn't have to deal with any final expenses? That sounds right. Yes, that's like my first trial close. Yeah, perfect. That's why I'm here. I restate back to them why they filled it out after they tell me. Does that sound right? Yes, perfect. That's why we're here. So I get a trial close as quickly as I possibly can right there in the beginning. And then I explain the process of everything. So, hey, Zach, you know, just so you know, I throw up my hands and I go, no fancy presentation, because I'm not the insurance sales guy. I'm just the underwriter. And when I throw up my hands, I watch like the pissed off husband just uncross his arms. He's like, oh, no fancy presentation. They're always like, oh, thank you. Perfect. We don't want a fancy presentation. Because guys, this is not a fancy presentation. If you're doing a fancy presentation, you're literally doing it all wrong. And that's why you're not closing any business, because I think you're selling them. So, hey guys, no fancy presentation. I'm just the underwriter. Hey, here's what my job is. I work with all of the insurance carriers. I can act like a broker for you. I can shop around. And I'm also what's considered non-captive. Captive is like State Farm. If I worked for State Farm, I'd be required to show you State Farm. I have no loyalty to any of these companies. It does not matter to me, Zach, who you guys end up with, or even if you end up with anybody. My job is just to make a recommendation. And if I'm sitting with somebody who could be my parents or my grandparents, I do this. I go, and, you know, Zach, just so you know, I've sat with probably about 2,000 families in the last 2 years. So I am pretty good at my job. I'm really good at getting people placed with insurance. And here's the deal. I'm going to tell you guys the truth like you're my own parents, like you're my own grandparents. And what I mean by that is Zach, if it makes absolutely no sense to protect your family, I'm just going to tell you guys not to do it. But if it makes sense, I'm going to make a strong recommendation. Is that okay? And they go, yeah, that's okay. Absolutely. So I've gotten permission from them to give them a strong recommendation, but I've also built trust because I told them if it doesn't make sense, we're not going to do anything. I'm going to tell them not to do anything. Most of the time it makes sense. So I never have to go that route of telling them not to do it, because it always makes sense to protect your family. So at that point, okay, so here's how this is going to work today. I pull out the financial inventory and put it in front of them. 2 minutes on your health, 2 minutes on your finances. Based on how you answer, I'm going to make a recommendation. I'm going to show you a few options. And if we see something that makes sense, we are going to submit a request for coverage to see if you qualify. Does that sound fair? Yes. Next trial close. Now they've agreed to the process, and then I start my financial inventory.
Perfect, dude. Yeah, and I think something people are like, I don't want to offend anyone, or I don't want to rub anyone the wrong way, but look, people are looking for you to take control and be a professional and tell them what to do in some regard, right? Ask good questions, be assertive, and then make a professional recommendation. And everything, if I did what you did, I would have sold a lot more insurance, because that's very clean and much more professional than anything I ever did. Let's wrap with this, Jamie. I know you have another call to get on. Starting with recruiting, building a team. Give everyone, if everyone on here goes, hey man, I want to start building my own business, I want to make some override residual income, what's a couple of things that you could do for free to start building your agency right away?
The first thing you can do is be at the top of the leaderboard. That's free. You be at the top of the leaderboard. I don't want to follow somebody who is not leading, to be completely honest. I saw this quote. It was, productive people follow productive people. If you're having trouble attracting big producers, are you a big producer? I think that's really something that's important to look at. Productive people attract productive people. If you're not productive, there's a reason you're not attracting productive people. That's so important. You have to just be honest and truthful with yourself. Also, I had no plans on building a team when I first started here, but I happened to get to the top of the leaderboard, and then I do use social media. So of course, I started getting tagged in things. And the first time someone tags you, I reposted my story, and people are like, what's that you're at the top of the leaderboard on? And you can get some free recruits just off your warm market if you're doing well. If you're not doing well, like, there's nothing really that to brag about, So like, of course you want to tell people about how great you can brag about how great Family First Life is, but you can't brag about how great you're doing. So, being at the top of the leaderboard gives you confidence in recruiting. It also gives confidence for other people to reach out to you. Like, talk about attraction marketing, other people reaching out to you instead of you just spamming everybody's message box. You can get free recruits just by being at the top of the leaderboard, just based off of the friends that you have and people seeing you doing well. I think that's the most important first step. And then you start doing well, keep doing well, and then help other people do exactly what you're doing and post about their success and talk about you working. So for me, if you ever look at my Instagram, you're going to see me posting on there every single Saturday in the field. You're going to see me talking about funny things that I'm doing in the field. Like, I had a post yesterday where some lady, or 2 days ago, had to go into the middle of nowhere. The GPS didn't work when I got there. And she goes, hey, you can't miss my house. Just look for the cow on a rock, is what she said. And I'm like, looking for this giant cow statue. And I passed this house like 4 times. And then there's this tiny little figurine cow that had to have been like this big on this rock. When I pull up, I'm like, and there it is. And then I went in there and, helped the family. But it's just like, I post funny things like that on my story. I talk about if I have a struggle in the home and how I overcame it. I talk about stories of, I guess heartwarming stories of helping someone with insurance. And I just show people that I'm working, and I talk about the results of Families Protected, and I promote what other people are doing as well. So if I didn't have a big agency, I'd be promoting all the success stories that Zach posts, that Grady posts, and just promoting success in general. But I always want to be at the top of the leaderboard. I think that's the number one key. Then you'll get featured on a podcast. They'll call you out to the studio, and then you're wearing the headphones, look like you're in ESPN studio, and then your friends see that and they're like, okay, what's this? I'll at least ask about it. So I think that's the first and the easiest thing you can do, is get to the top of the leaderboard.
Absolutely, dude. This is tons of valuable. And I actually have one more question for you, if you can share.
Sure.
So I think one thing that you've always done, you're a very articulate speaker, you have a great mindset, and you clearly do a lot of professional development stuff, outside of just whatever is done in FFL. So if you can you make some sort of recommendation for people, something that would help, what's either a podcast or book people could listen to help out with their mindset and becoming just like a stronger thinker, for lack of a better term?
Sure. The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. That book is a wealth of information. That book will change your life if you've never read it before. The Compound Effect is amazing. I would say that's the easiest one that anybody could listen to. I mean, I could give you so many other recommendations, but I think that's just a really good foundation. Talking about doing something consistently. There's this analogy that you hear all the time that they talk about in this book, and I've taken it kind of a different direction, kind of as I've learned more about it. What would you rather have now? A penny now, or I'm sorry, $1 million now, or a penny doubled every day for 30 days? And everybody knows what direction this is going. Of course, take the penny because it's worth 5.3 million if you double it over 30 days. But what happens if instead of doubling the penny every day, you doubled it every other day? So rather than doubling every day, every other day, so 15 times instead of 30 times, that penny's worth $163 at the end of the month versus 5.3 million if you did it every day. So I tell people that's the difference between full-time and sometimes. I do the business sometimes $163 worth of effort versus 5.3 million. That's the compound effect of consistency. So that's the difference in if you're kind of doing this or if you're actually doing this. So I think that's super important to understand.
Absolutely. Well, hey, you provide us a ton of value today. I really, really appreciate you getting on, and thank you for all you do for the company, and looking forward to see you keep crushing it and be an integrity partner very soon, and just honored to be in business with you, bro. Thanks, guys. Thank you guys for jumping on, and hope if everyone got something out of it, throw a JC in the chat for me, for Jamie here, because I appreciate him and his beautiful family and everything he does for the company. So thanks,
awesome, guys. Have a good day, guys.
See you, man.